I've seen so many people screw up because they started with too much money. You want to have that hunger. You want to have a bit of force to make you think, and okay, how can I do this? How can I do this without money? What is the definition of an entrepreneur, Cody? An entrepreneur is somebody who is a person that solves problems for other people at a profit. That's it. Plan is good to get you started, but it never ever goes according to plan. It's what can I do now? Yep. What is the best path that's going to get me to the next step, and just keep going from there. And that's with business, that's with everything. But the plan gets you started. How I started building my new circle was going through networking. You can network and meet prospects, wonderful. But one of the biggest things that I found is just surrounding yourself with other business owners and being able to learn from them.
I'm incredibly excited to do this with you. I know when we talked originally, if I remember correctly, you work with entrepreneurs, sort of, maybe, is it new entrepreneurs?
As new as possible. My sweet spot is idea stage up to 2 years in business, because that's where I can have the most positive impact.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's really new. That's extremely new. So, well, we'll get into it, but if you want to introduce yourself really quick and say who you are, and then we'll kind of dive in. I'm going to make a note about this new entrepreneur because I have a question about that. But if you want to introduce yourself first, we'll go from there.
Okay. So I'm Tammy Johnston. I am the hold your hand and kick your ass business coach. I've been working with small businesses for well over 20 years now, and I specialize in working with new entrepreneurs as early in their journey as possible, like idea stage up to 2 years. And I work on teaching them the basic foundational skills they need to first survive and then thrive. I am on a mission to drastically improve the success rate of new businesses.
Okay, perfect. There's a lot there, man. That's a difficult job, I feel like, so you say 0 to 2 years is a sweet spot.
Yep.
And
idea stage to 2 years. My favorite people to get are what I call the praying for the pink slip crowd, the ones that have a job that they want out and they would like to start their business, but they haven't done anything yet, because then I can make sure that they don't make a lot of the very common, very painful, very expensive mistakes right off the get-go. It's always best to do things right as much as possible rather than have to go back and fix things.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. What do you think it is that, like, these people, this sort of, if they're in that space where they want to start a business, maybe they don't know how or whatever, what do you think it is stopping them from doing that? I mean, I'm sure there's maybe many things, but like, say
there's plenty of things. I would say probably the biggest one is fear. Fear. It is a very different world stepping out from being an employee to being an entrepreneur. And our school system, our society, and all that stuff over the last 100 to 150 years, we are trained to be employees. So we're stepping into a foreign world. And right. A lot of people go, and we're also raised to be perfectionists. Also goes back to our school and the fear. We don't get told, like, oh, this is all the stuff you did right. Here's the stuff you did wrong. Here's your big red X's and your failure rate and all of this stuff. So it trains us to not take risks, not make mistakes. So if we can't be assured that we're going to step out and we're going to be really comfortable and really confident, a lot of people will not even step into the arena.
Yeah, that's interesting, man, because I agree with that. I think it's almost like that need for security, or maybe like because I just remember, like, that's a very big move if you go from a company that your paycheck is going to be there, your benefits or whatever it is, and then you go off on your own, and it's like everything is literally on you,
Mm-hmm.
So I get I'm not saying the fear is not valid, and I'm not even saying it's a rational thing to do that. I'm just saying like that's a huge thing,
It is.
I remember in my journey, man, I was like, my journey was a little bit, maybe not too much different, but I had, like, for the first 4 or 5 years, I had jobs, I didn't take them seriously, but I had jobs that I had to work to survive until I built the business, to a certain point. But for me, it wasn't like a sudden quick thing. Like, it wasn't like, maybe it's not like that for anybody. I don't know. but it wasn't like that for me where I was like, I'm going to quit my job right now at this minute and go pursue this thing. I don't know, maybe for some people it happens that way, but for me it wasn't. But yeah, that's a pretty big.
For some people it happens. Some people do a transition, and those are the ones that I like working with the best, because when you are having to get your business going, it puts so much pressure on you, and you put off this air of desperation, and it repels clients and customers from you. Where if you don't need it to, like, I don't need to work with you to make sure my kid has food on the table. I'd like to work with you. Makes you a lot more attractive. Where a lot of people end up starting their business, I have found, fired or laid off.
You said fired or laid. You said fired or laid off?
Yeah, fired or laid off.
Yeah. You know what's interesting about that, man? I agree with that 100%. I agree if there's too much desperation, it will, it will push people away from you, professionally or personally.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also too, like, it's incredible how much of a motivator that is.
Mm-hmm.
These people that get fired or laid off or whatever it is. And like, I think the key thing is there is that you had that in you all along,
Yep.
You had the ability to do that all along. You just needed, I say needed loosely, but you had that extra push that sort of gave you a sense of urgency.
That's how I started.
So do you want to explain how you started?
So my background actually is in financial services. So I've been in financial services for coming up on 33 years. And I moved all around, and each time I moved, better title, better pay, and all that stuff. But I would get to the point where I was like, okay, I do not like working for these people. And my last job that I hated where I was. It was all I could do every single morning to drag myself in and not throw my idiot boss through a plate glass window. And I was already putting out my resume, lining up interviews. I had a very good reputation in the industry in the city where I was. And I got called into my boss's office, and he fired me. And in that moment, I felt this great big huge weight being lifted off of my shoulders, and I'm going in my head, okay, you know what? I've had people telling me I need to go out and get into sales, start my own business for years, and I always had, no, don't want to do that, don't want to take the risk, all the bullshit excuses. But the moment of being fired, I just go, I never have to work for another creepy, incompetent old man again, and decided in that moment that I was going to go into sales. If it had been one more week, I would have been handing in my notice, and who knows how many more years it would have been before I would have had enough courage or being irritated and pissed off enough to do it on my own. So being fired in that moment was one of the best things that ever happened to me, because it was that push to go out. But I'm going, one of the reasons why I focus on working with new businesses, like idea stage to 2 years, I'm going, I went into my business in a much better position than most people, but it was still slow and painful. And I had to learn so much stuff on my own just by doing it. I'm going, if I could go back and talk to me 1 year before that moment where I got fired and go, okay, Tammy, you need to start putting stuff together. Here's all the stuff it would have made my life 1,000,000 times easier.
You know what's crazy is the story that you just told me. I've seen and heard, but you know what's actually fascinating is like the people, like there's there's almost like a dance with that, like going into, and the boss, you had the boss that you don't really like. It's like what I've found with people in that situation is like, there'll be times where they're absolutely frustrated with that person, and it'll be just bad enough to piss them off, but not bad enough to push them in the direction of getting out of that company, And so, dude, it sounds like, I don't know how else to phrase this other than like when you're in that situation and you don't remove yourself from that situation, it's like you're selling your soul. I feel like, at least that's how I felt,
Yep. Well, I was preparing to leave that situation, but it was just preparing myself to put myself in a new situation that wasn't going to be much different. Same shit, different pile.
Right. Yeah. So, okay. So if you have, so I'm assuming that you work with people sort of in that similar situation that you were in.
So, a lot of them.
So is it just around the fear, or are there other things, other obstacles? Like, is there like, do you work with people with, the lack of finances? Do you go over budgets with people? Like, what do you?
Oh yeah, no, budgeting's a huge one, and it's a very, very valuable skill to be learning. And one of the things that I have seen is it's actually a good thing to start with a little bit of a shortage. Like, you don't want to be like absolutely desperate, but I've seen so many people screw up because they started with too much money.
Oh, wow.
Too much money. And they weren't forced to be creative or think about things. Their answer to every problem was throw money at it, which worked until they ran out of money. Yep. And I've seen that with people that literally started with millions and then destroyed themselves, where you want to have that hunger. You want to have a bit of force to make you think, and okay, how can I do this? How can I do this without money?
Yep. That's a really good point, because Tony Robbins says that we don't have a lack of resources, we have a lack of resourcefulness.
Yes.
And I feel like resourcefulness is much more valuable of a skill than resources. You know, yes. I mean, I understand it takes, assuming that you earn the resources, it takes skills to acquire that. And I understand that, but being resourceful, man, that's like, think now that we're having this conversation, man, I look back over my journey, and I'm kind of glad that there were times that I didn't have, the relationships or the finance or whatever, because it gives you a lesson that you're not going to learn from a book. You can't learn that from a textbook.
And you will get the lesson, but if you learn the lessons at the beginning and learn how, like you said, to be resourceful, to be creative, to solve problems in multiple ways, not just money, when you become more successful and you have bigger problems, you have the ability to survive them. Where a lot of people, if it starts off too nice and soft and squishy and comfortable, when they really do have a problem, they're done because they never learned the skills to get through it.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is why, like, I say this a lot, and I always use entrepreneurship as the example, because I feel like that's one of the most profound. But if you're trying, if you have a business, you start a business and it doesn't work the way you want it to, or maybe it doesn't, it fails or whatever, it's like the journey along that, man, is like it's like the journey is the prize, not the destination that you think it leads to. Because the things that you learn along the way, like, you can take that, you can apply it to another business or whatever. And I know it sucks to maybe like lose all your money or, whatever, but I don't know. I feel like the journey is the pay, I guess, so to speak, the benefit,
I'm a big fan of not losing all your money. Like, you don't have to be destroyed. You don't have to go bankrupt.
Right.
But
right.
You do need to learn those skills. Like, they always say, if you see a butterfly trying to emerge from its chrysalis and you cut it open and pull it open to make it easier for them, you've killed the butterfly. Because they need to do the stretching and the pulling and getting themselves out of there, because that gets the blood flowing into their wings so that they can fly. Where if they don't have that, you just open it for them, they are going to die. They're never going to fly. We need to have that. Like, we can help people, but we can't do it for them.
Yeah. What is there's a quote, and I forget who said this, but it says something along the lines of, anytime you do something for somebody that they are capable of doing for themselves, it's like you're literally stealing from that person. I think it was Dr. Robert Anthony, I think is his name, and I think it was from a book titled The Total Secrets of Ultimate Self-Confidence or something like that. But he mentioned in there that anytime you do something like that for somebody that they can do for themselves, you're basically causing more harm than good, to that person. And I don't have children, so I can't comment on this, but you think about that with it's easy to think about it with children, I feel like, because if you are carrying them around everywhere and you never give them the chance to walk, to walk on their own, I mean, is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? It sounds like it'd probably be a bad thing.
So I have a daughter, she's in her third year of university, and she's always had chores. And the chores have gotten bigger and all this stuff as she's been growing up and stuff like that. And I remember when she was like in 5th grade and stuff like that, and I would be teaching her to cook, and she'd be getting a little grumpy with me because, well, she'd rather be playing or watching TV or something. And I would say, It is my job as your mom to teach you the skills so that you could grow up and be a functioning adult. And you might not understand this now, but when you go off to university and you can cook and do your laundry and clean up after yourself and do all these things, you're going to be a rock star. Because it blows my mind how many adults, legal adults, are going off to university and don't have the skills to make toast because mom or dad always did everything for them. And then my daughter was in junior high. I think she was like grade 8 or grade 9, and I don't know what happened, but all of her classmates, they were all talking about all the things that they could do. Yep. And Ayla came home and she was saying, oh my God, Mom, you're right. I'm a rock star. Like, we were talking about the stuff that I can do. And when they're finding out that, like, I get myself up in the morning and I can cook and I do my laundry and all this stuff, Mom, they don't know how to do anything.
Yeah. And I love where this is going, because we bring this back full circle. Earlier, we were talking about, that fear of branching out and starting your own business or, a different career or whatever. And it's like, if you don't know how to do these things, it seems like, are very basic things, frankly. If you don't know how to do these things, then how can you trust yourself or listen to that inner intuition when it comes to wanting to start a business or changing your career or changing your major or whatever it is, like,
or even just putting yourself up for a promotion.
Yeah.
There's so much that people just play small because I'd rather not be seen and take any risks. And then I'm just going to be really disappointed with my life because I don't have the skills. I don't have the confidence because I have never tested it. I have never built up those muscles. So they never accomplish anything with their life.
Yeah. And this is, I love where this is going. This is, I'm sure you work with people a lot with imposter syndrome.
Oh, very, very common. More common with women than with men. But yeah, it's across the board.
But it's like, okay, so we're talking about these things that you can't trust yourself. You can't depend on yourself because of these basic things. There have been many times over the past decade, anytime I've tried to do something new or a different direction or whatever, I've felt the imposter syndrome. And I don't know if I would have been able to get myself through that had I not had things I can refer back to that happened prior to that and say, you know what? I felt like this in that situation also, but I was able to do this. I was able to make this thing happen or whatever. And it's like you're proving yourself to yourself along the way. And I don't know, like, had I not had that, it's interesting to think, like, what else do you have to rely on at that point? Because you're putting yourself in a space that you haven't been in before. There's other people in that space that have been there a lot longer than you, more successful, whatever. And you're putting yourself in this new space. And it's like, I guess the essentially the question is, who am I to do this thing? I guess that's essentially what imposter syndrome is. You don't feel like you have the talents or abilities or whatever. But like, man, that self-belief is like incredibly empowering. And it's also incredibly important to have that in that situation. And I don't know, just for me personally, the things that happened before that, I was able to refer back to that and say, okay, well, this situation was similar, but I was able to do, X.
Yep. Another one that I find is a big one is the perfectionism. I don't want to do anything unless I can do it like super, super good because I don't want people to laugh at me or think I'm not competent or anything like that. And I find that's a huge one that holds people back. And I'm fighting with that personally myself all the time. But I go, you know what? If I look back to when I started doing this or started doing that, I wasn't good. And now, because I have put myself out there and keep doing it and keep building my skills, now I'm amazing or working on it. So I always have to remind myself, okay, nobody starts off at the Olympics.
Yeah. Well, I also feel like there's never a right time to start either. Like if I counted the things that I did, I try to do and did it perfectly, like there would be zero things, and you can get in that space, man, where you're like, you're thinking about all the details, you're thinking about the plan. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing to have a plan. It is absolutely a good thing to have a plan, but you put yourself in that space where it's, it's the analysis paralysis, and you're like, you can't move because they're like all these things. And it's like, if you just take the next step, if you just take a direction, like just do something, anything.
A plan is good to get you started, but it never ever goes according to plan unless it's like a 5-minute plan, because all sorts of things change. I'll go back to so I told you my background is financial services. I still have my financial planning company, and then I have KSA where I look after the small business coaching and consulting. And I don't ever run projections on investments. Why? Because I've been doing this for 33 years and I have never, ever, ever seen one come even remotely close. Not just because of rates of return and stuff, but life. I've seen people, okay, well, I was laid off or had this financial stuff, and okay, that slowed down my pen. So the result is irrelevant. Or no, I started my business and things really took off and I ended up earning more, and all sorts of things. It's what can I do now?
Yep.
What is the best path that's going to get me to the next step, and just keep going from there. And that's with business, that's with everything. But the plan gets you started.
Well, and it's also too, like when you get started and you start doing the next thing and the next thing, and you build momentum, and then you build confidence because of that momentum. And you're like, okay, well, maybe this isn't as bad as I thought it would be initially. And I feel like it helps you. I don't know. I feel like that momentum of moving forward helps you. I don't know how else to say it other than it helps you. You mentioned it when you were talking about people do this thing and they get more busier than what they anticipated. I think that's also just as big of a fear as failure. If we fear that we are going to do the thing and it works out, and maybe we can't handle the success of it.
Or how many relatives are going to come out of the woodwork and all the other stuff. Fear is everywhere, and we're going to deal with garbage no matter what. But do you want to be more in control of your life, or do you want to be the ball in the pinball machine that just you are reacting to everything that is thrown at you rather than you being in control?
Have you ever heard of, like, I'm sure you've heard of survivor's guilt?
Yep.
You mentioned relatives and that kind of thing. Have you heard of dreamer's guilt?
Not those exact terms, but I'm pretty sure I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So when you're trying to pursue something or do something, and maybe people around you are not, and you feel that you have to essentially leave people behind because it's not really your responsibility to force them to grow with you.
Well, and you can't force people to grow. And this is one of the things I explain to my clients, my students and stuff all the time. Your circle is going to change. And it could be a little bit, but for most people, it is a total and complete change. Like when I started my business, all of our social circle were all employees. And when I started my business, I discovered very, very quickly I couldn't talk to them. Like they had no idea what I was talking about. They would look at me like I was speaking Klingon. Within 2 years, all of my social circle were other entrepreneurs. Because we could get together and talk and or even just listen when we're going through hard stuff and going, oh, okay, I'm not the only person that's dealing with this problem. I am not insane. I am not a loser. Okay, what can I learn from them and how can I get through it and stuff? But yeah, my entire social circle changed within 2 years. And I find that with the vast majority of people.
Well, it's like, man, that's such a good point, because unless they're on some sort of similar path that you are, they're not going to understand,
No.
and you're going to talk to people and you're going to express things. And, and I'm not saying that these people are right or wrong. I think they're just giving the advice or the information
They're
that
just
they have
different.
available. Yeah. They're just not on the same path as you. And so it's, especially with entrepreneurship, man, it's like, it's such a lonely journey, because there's more people, there's less people who are doing it than people who are doing it. So, by nature, it's already going to put you outside of the, the social realm. But then it's like, you're in that weird space for a little bit, to where the social circle that you have is not on that path, but yet you haven't really worked long enough in this space to have a new social circle around, the things that you're trying to do. So it's like, for a little bit, you're in a weird space right there.
Yep.
And I think as humans, we really need that connection. We need that social connection to other people. And I think that's one of the many reasons that, sort of pushes people away from entrepreneurship or anything that not everybody, a very small portion of people are doing.
It's definitely one of the things. So how I started building my new circle was going through networking, and I joined a group business coaching program, and we would get together in person once a quarter, and I would get to meet other people, and we'd learn things, and we'd start talking. And that is what saved my sanity, because I'm nuts. So not only did I start my business the moment I got fired, but I got pregnant a few months later, had to build a baby all through that. I took 30 hours of mat leave, and then just had to, my daughter was seeing clients with me before she was 2 days old. She was teaching with me by the time she was a week, and she did her first trade show with me when she was 2 weeks old.
Wow.
And
didn't waste any time.
I couldn't, because I just started to get the momentum going.
Right.
And when you're self-employed, like, we have really good maternity benefits up here in Canada. We get a year if you're an employee. So I didn't have that option. But even if I did, if I had taken that time off and just, okay, I'll come back to it here, I would have been starting right from scratch again. And
Yep.
one of the many reasons why I was finally irritated enough to go in that moment of firing instead of going to my next job interviews was to start my business. Was my husband and I, we were talking about starting our family, and I'm going, I don't want to get my baby up at 5:30 in the morning so that we can get out the door by 6:30 so I can drop them off at daycare to go to a job I can't stand, miss everything, pick them up, see them maybe for an hour before I have to put them to bed, and just rinse and repeat for years. I didn't want to do that. We're going, if I set up my own business, I can set my hours. I can figure out how I want to do it. Yes, it was challenging. It was really challenging because my daughter didn't sleep through the night till she was almost 5 years old. But I am so glad that I did it, because I was able to always be there for her. We were able to be the pizza mom and the volunteer mom and do all that stuff. And my daughter, she just learned to come around with me, and she's perfectly fine with it. And she understands entrepreneurship because she watched me do it for her entire life.
How often do you run across people that are in these situations that's kind of similar to that? So I don't know, just to give you an example, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie, I forget the name of the movie. The guy is like trying to create a battery. He's trying to build a battery, and he has a woman that's with him that doesn't really support it. And then he has, throughout the movie, he's going through all these, like he misses some kind of very important family dinner with her because he was going to try to sell this battery. Anyways, long story short, he ends up selling the battery for like $80 million or something like that, the idea. And so, but he's going through this journey. Gosh, what is it? It's like there's a love story attached to it. I can't remember the name of the movie. Anyways, he's going through, he's trying to do this thing, trying to build this thing. And there's one scene in the movie where he has I don't know, he's like a delivery guy with UPS or something like that. And he gets a call to meet somebody about the battery. And he's literally presented with that choice to like quit his job, because he was on his last strike at his job, to quit his job basically and go to this meeting with this guy, or pursue, go deliver the package or whatever it was. And it was clear in that part of the movie that like that was a crossroads for him. That was one of those decisions. And of course with the movie, ultimately he chooses the other path and becomes successful at it. But how often do you run across entrepreneurs in that sort of space with that really sort of fork in the road decision right there?
A lot more common more recently. Like when I first started working with small business owners over 20 years ago, not quite so much, but I found a lot more of them in the last 10 to 5 years in particular.
Okay. This episode is brought to you by Excel Coaching Academy. Hey guys, I'm really excited to let you know that I started a mindset coaching business. So what I want to do with this business is I want to help entrepreneurs, business owners, salespeople, leaders, and fitness enthusiasts or athletes develop the right mindset to increase revenue, improve business or performance, and overcome the challenges needed to become the best version of themselves. You can get more information about this by emailing info@excelcoaching.academy. Gosh, I don't even know if this question can be answered. What do you recommend a person does in that situation, man? It's like, path, the undesirable path leads to whatever, the next monotonous day or whatever it is, something you don't really want to do, or the other path leads to the thing that you really want to do, but it's not guaranteed. There's going to be immediate pain from it because you're going to lose your job or whatever it is. I mean, that's like,
you're asking a very good question, but it's a loaded question because it's not just that. Because there's a lot of people that, they'll follow, that's my dream, I'm going to follow, but they're not prepared for it. Where we don't have to be 100% ready, but do you have the supports? Do you have the skill set behind you in order to, I'm all for taking risks, but I'm a really big fan of calculated risks. This is why women started businesses are 400% more successful than men. Why? Because a lot of women are starting businesses because they've been left or whatever, or, okay, I need to bring in money because I don't have a man, or he's not making enough and things are bloody expensive. And I need to put food on the table for the kids, make sure there's a roof over their head. So women will take much more calculated risks. They will, like, think about it playing baseball. They will make the singles. They'll get you to first base, second base, third base, fourth base. Rarely are they even trying to swing for the home run, because yeah, if you get lucky, the home run is wonderful, but you're also a lot more likely to strike out. Where you're playing it safe, it's not going to be as exciting, but the bills are going to get paid. The roof's going to stay over the kid's head. The food's going to stay on the table. So you don't typically find so many self-made billionaire women or even multimillionaire women. But if you want them to stay in the game and stay consistent and growing slowly and sustainably, women kick male ass.
Yeah.
Because they take much more calculated risks.
Yeah. That definitely makes sense, man. And I don't believe in any way whatsoever to just go out and do things, just because we hear so much about risk in building businesses and entrepreneurship, but you hit the nail on the head. You have to have calculated risk. Like, you have to know, like, you can't just go out and take risk. You know what I mean? Like we mentioned earlier about losing all your money. Well, it's probably not a good idea to put all your money on the line for something that you have not studied whatsoever,
Yep. That's gambling.
Yeah.
That's just gambling.
Yeah. And
if you're taking the call and it's like, okay, yeah, this is somebody who actually does work at a company and this could be really good. And I've been working on building this relationship or whatever, or I have enough knowledge. I have enough base to go, okay, you know what? That is a good calculated risk, rather than somebody just go, I need to meet you right now. You have no idea who they are. You have no idea how they found you. No, I just need to meet you. That's a stupid risk.
Right.
So there's a lot more to it.
Man, I have wasted a significant amount of time trying to.
Well,
you know where I'm going with this.
Welcome to life and business.
I have wasted a significant amount of time trying to sell things to people who are in no way qualified to buy these things I'm trying to sell. Yep. And look, it's like, I got to give myself a little bit of grace, man, because I talk to these people and they're like, oh yeah, we're interested. We want to, get us a proposal, whatever, get us a price. And then I do all these things, which takes, a couple days or a week to get this stuff together. And then I present it and it's, oh yeah, this looks good. I'm going to send it to somebody else. They send it to somebody else. And that person, like, they're like, oh no, we're not trying to make a change to this right now. Like, I have wasted a significant amount of time trying to sell things. But like, the point is, you were talking about this person being at this company, like, you have to, you kind of have to qualify the leads that you get. And that's a huge lesson that I learned the hard way. But you're right. You can't just go out, like, every single person who expressed interest is not going to be a paying customer, and you may not even want them to, just because they show interest doesn't mean that it's going to be a good fit for either of you.
Well, yeah, number one, is it a fit? But I always train people, okay, what's the difference between a prospect and a suspect?
yeah, really. I don't know.
Prospect is somebody, they have a need or want for your product or service. They have the ability to pay.
That's it. Yep.
And they have the ability to make the decision. So many people, when they start out, they're talking to somebody. Yes, I know they desperately need me. I know they have the money, the company can pay me or whatever, but they're talking to the person who has no ability to say yes.
Yep.
So there's all sorts of things, like so many, and it's usually the lessons that hurt the most are the ones that are the most valuable. But I'm a big fan. I would rather learn from other people's screw ups than have to make them all myself.
Yeah, for sure. So what about suspect? What is that? You mentioned prospect and suspect.
Well, suspects, like you said, do they have a need or want for your service? Maybe, maybe not. Do they have the ability to pay? Because that's another one. Yeah, no, they really, really need me, and I'll just keep donating my time because they know they don't have the money to pay me. Or they're talking to somebody who, like you said, doesn't have the ability to make the decision.
Makes sense.
A lot of the time, they're talking to another salesperson in the company rather than the president or CEO who can actually sign the check.
Yeah, dude. So everything that we're talking about, we're coming back full circle to everything. And I love this. So earlier we were talking about people sort of being repelled by you, being pushed away by the desperate, sort of, I don't want to say neediness, but that's kind of what it is.
Yep.
But I think that when we're in this situation, whether that's business or whatever, and we are trying to get this sale, I think if we show people, at least this has been my experience, if we show people that we sort of, respect our time and respect their time,
Mm-hmm.
they'll be much more likely to do business with us. Maybe not them, but in the future, you know.
Yes.
So I think that people sort of get the idea that like, oh, I'm trying to sell to this person, and I want to show them that I'm eager to provide value to them. And I'm not saying to not provide value, but people will. I feel like in my experience, people will respect you more if you can show that, like, hey, maybe we're not a good fit right now. I value your time. I value my time.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever. And I think that will go a lot farther for people versus just trying to relentlessly prove yourself to them before before they're a prospect, basically.
Yeah, we pick up on other people's energy, and when we are putting out an energy, well, I need your business, I'll do anything to get it. We are putting out energy that says you can jerk me around, you can do all this stuff. But when you have the confidence in what you bring to the table and how you can help them, and you're going, you know what, I'd love to work with you. I will do a great job. If you don't get that, that's perfectly fine. Goodbye. I will go on to the next one. People, oh yeah, no, I want you. People pick up on that.
Yeah.
So are you attracting or are you repelling?
A crazy thing is too, man, you go to a person who's clearly a salesperson and they're not trying to push something down your throat about what they're selling you. And it's like, I'm like, wait a minute, hang on a minute. Who is this? Like, what's your target market? Because now I want to be in there because now I'm interested in what you're selling. I don't know. I always tell people, man, like, and I get this a lot with like the landscaping company. I get this a lot, but the phone calls about, whatever they're trying to sell or whatever, or the emails, the bulk emails that come from who knows. I mean, these things just exist. Like they just come out of nowhere. They just come into existence. Like these email lists, I don't sign up for these things. These people just get the emails and they just send it and it just comes out of nowhere. But it's like,
well, they get it. They've all this stuff, and with our advancement in technology and stuff, they can just spam. And I also get, because I've got the contact forms and stuff on my website, and I get all that. So it's just instant delete. And in fact, I answer my phone like maybe once every 2 weeks because I have call display on everything. And if I don't know the number, 99% of the time, it's a robo dialer.
Yeah.
If it's somebody that actually does want to talk, leave a message. I will call you back, but I don't even answer my phone anymore because almost every single call is a spammer or a robo dialer.
Well, there and that's what I was going to say. There's almost, when you talk to a person, even that's not a robo, like even it's not a spammer, like a person who's actually legitimately trying to do business. There is almost nothing that will guarantee I will do business with somebody versus or quicker than a person who simply will not take no for an answer. Like if a person is selling you something or trying to sell you something, this has always been a pet peeve of mine. And I try very hard to not be this person, but it's like, if you say that you're not interested, it's not going to work for you right now, whatever. And the person keeps going on with it. Like, I'm just like, that really irritates me, man.
I'm Canadian, so I do try to be polite, but I have no problem hanging up on people or walking away. My time is valuable. If you know what, I'm all about, like I say, drip until people get wet or tell you to fuck off. But you don't have to be pushy. You don't have to be pushy. Let them know. Like, I've had people, my personal record from having somebody meet me to becoming a client is 14 years.
Oh, wow.
14 years. And put myself out there. I've had people on my newsletter list for literally like 6 years to a decade. And then they'll finally get a hold. And if I look through my analytics, like, they might open a newsletter like once a year or something, but they said, we met you, we really liked you, but we weren't ready. But we like the fact that, like, we see your name and it reminds us of you. And now we're finally ready. Like, there's persistent and then there's pain in the ass.
Yeah. And I don't think, I don't know, man, because that is a weird balance, because I do believe in providing value first. I just don't believe in like devaluing what you have to offer by going overboard with it,
Yep.
And I mean, that's a balance. Like, and I think what a lot of people, especially new entrepreneurs, especially if they're in the B2B space, with me, it was a little bit different because I started in the B2C space, but then I went to B2B. But like, especially in the B2B space, man, these people are inundated constantly all day long with people who are trying to sell them something. So if you go to them and you're doing that exact same thing, if it's by the afternoon, they've already had 5 people approach them trying to sell them something, you're probably going to be just disregarded immediately.
Yes. And
And
not just disregarded, they're going to have a very bad taste in their mouth from you.
yeah, because you're getting the momentum from the 5 rejections before you.
Yes, exactly. You're just another person who is just after my money. You actually don't care. You're doing the simple spamming stuff. No, don't want.
Yeah, yeah. But man, you mentioned networking and like relationships, and I wish somebody would have given me that advice early on because
Yeah.
that is like, gosh, it's almost impossible to state the value of networking and growing your business.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like just being in the place of the people who are potential prospects for you, just being in those places.
Yeah, I think it's not even just the prospects. Like, yes, if you can network and meet prospects, wonderful. But one of the biggest things that I found is just surrounding yourself with other business owners and being able to learn from them and share and just being part of that community. Because I've been part of networking groups where these are not my ideal client. I love them to pieces. We give referrals to one another and all this stuff, but are we ever going to directly do business? No, we're not appropriate for one another. But
Right,
I love these people. And if I have a question or can you connect me with somebody or I'm having a bad day with this or whatever, these are people I can lean on and they come back and lean on me. And I'm going, that
right.
is amazing. Because when you're a business owner, we typically can't talk to those who are closest to us. Like
Mhm.
my husband is wonderful, but he is very much an employee. And if I tried to share, like when I'm having a bad day and the stuff that's stressing me, it would just put him into a panic.
Right.
And I couldn't talk to my mom. Like she thinks she now fine with it, but she thought I was insane anytime I changed jobs, let alone when I started my business. Like
Mhm.
can't talk to people like that because it's just going to stress them, which is going to be more stressed. But talking to other small business owners going, okay, I can learn and no, I'm not the only person that's gone through this. That is invaluable. Any
Yeah.
business you get out of it is a plus.
Right. Oh yeah, for sure. Because if people come to you and they have a question that you can't answer, or it's not your field or whatever, but you can direct them to the right direction because you know somebody because you've networked
Mm-hmm.
with them. I mean, that's just like it's an invaluable skill, man. Well, skill, yes, it is a
It
skill, but
is a skill.
it's a resource. I feel like to know
Yep.
people, you know, in that, and it doesn't even have to be in your space. It, dude, it's crazy. Like, because I'm a big believer in being a problem solver
Oh, huge.
for your either your clients or whoever. Because I feel like when you're a problem solver, like people will want to keep you around
Mm-hmm.
professionally or whatever it is. You know, if you can solve their, or at the very least direct them to a person who maybe can solve their problems.
Yeah, huge. I've had my clients for decades. I'm going to ask me anything. I either know somebody or I know how to find.
Yeah.
And they love that. I'm going, yeah, it's be a connector, be a problem solver, be a force for good.
Yep. Well, I think we were talking about the skills that you learn with entrepreneurship. I think problem solving is definitely one that you learn. I mean,
Oh, it's the number one learn because if you don't learn that one, your problem is going to be you're not in business
yeah,
anymore.
yeah, for sure. I mean, because it's easy for people to think about sales, you know, networking, that kind of thing. I mean, I think that stuff's kind of obvious, and maybe even problem solving. But like being
Problem
able,
solving is part of all of that.
well, yeah. I mean, yeah. It's like looking at this. Like for me, it's been looking at the same problem multiple ways, and it's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, well, how can we fix the problem and still stay within the boundaries we need to stay? I mean, I don't know. It's just there's a sense of creativity in it, and I've always said that entrepreneurship is like an art form. It's like you know, you think about people painting or writing or whatever. It's so unique to the person, but also there's still somewhat of a blueprint to follow. But it's like it's so unique to the person that I feel like that is what makes their subjective success what it is. You know, it's like that. It's that because the person's personality is involved in it, like how
Mm-hmm.
they handle things, how they all that stuff is meshed together in their unique journey. I mean, it's just fascinating.
Oh, I always say business, when it is done right, honestly, ethically, morally, is the most beautiful art that there is for all the things you
Yeah,
just said. Like people put themselves out there, the creativity and the amazing positive things that can be brought about by business for the business owner and their family and their customers and the community as
yeah,
a whole when
yeah,
it is done properly. Like, and my rules are honestly, ethically, morally. There is no limit to the good that can be done.
yeah. Yeah, that's a good point because you're creating something that didn't exist prior. You know, you're creating a
Exactly.
business that didn't exist prior. And I think that I don't know, man, just that creation of that thing, I think is something that should be inspiring to us because, you know, it's whether the idea was ours or a partner's or whoever's, and we're bringing this thing to reality. That's just it's empowering, but it's also motivating. I feel like, you know,
Oh,
like this thing
100%
did not
agree.
exist before me. And I'm trying to bring it to reality. And if I do it the way I want to do it, my personal experience, and if I do it the right way, it's also going to benefit other people. You know, other people are involved in this. It's a business that, you know, there's payroll and there's people that we help and all this kind of stuff. Like I don't know. That's amazing to me. Like I don't know of anything else that I could create that would be like as impactful as that, you know, that helps people like in that way.
What is the definition of an entrepreneur, Cody?
Well, I don't know the textbook definition, but if I had to say it just kind of right off the top of my head, a person who actually I do kind of know I do know the technical definition. I think it's like a person who takes a need and connects it to a financial gain or something like that. So it's a person who solves a need or something like that.
An entrepreneur is somebody who is a person that solves problems for other people at a profit. That's it.
There you go.
Problems for people at a profit.
Yeah, there you go. Well, that makes sense. That makes sense. And I feel like if you focus on solving the problem for the person versus making the money, and I know that sounds cliche, but if you focus on the problem solving, I feel like you'll go a lot farther, you know?
Yeah. And that's why it's so important to even when you are desperate to tone that down, because if people think that all you care about is their money and not them and not their problem, they're not going to do business with you. Where if they can honestly feel that you care and that you can help them, you know what you're doing, there is no limit to what you can accomplish. Yeah,
for sure. Man, we hit the ground running and we just like went off with it. I didn't know I didn't know it was going to be like this much momentum, but hey, I'm here for it.
All good. This is why we have so much fun doing these things.
Yeah. I will say this. I do have another call in like roughly half an hour, and I don't want to be completely fried for that. Let me do this. Where can you be found? Do you have social media, website, or anything?
Yeah, my website, ksabusiness.ca, and you can find me. Instagram is the easiest one, ksa.business. But I have a couple of questions for you if we're finishing up quickly so you can get to your next one.
Yeah, I mean, because I have one more thing I want to ask you, but yeah, we got a couple minutes.
Okay, so if I ask you nicely, could I please get your mailing address?
Yes. Can I wait until I'm not recording for that?
Oh, of course.
Okay, yeah. I'll get you that there.
Okay, so why don't you ask your question, then we can stop recording, and then I'll ask the second question as well.
Okay. Is it relevant to the mailing address?
No.
Okay. I mean, you can. I just don't want to share. I just don't want to share the address over the live.
Oh, this is okay. I thought this was a record. It's all good. So yes, we will do that. We will have our questions after. Okay. I'm used to people recording, so. Okay. So I'm sorry, I didn't realize it was fully live.
No, you're okay. Yeah. So we talked about a lot. We talked about the fear, the initial fear of entrepreneurship, kind of go over, getting over that. We talked about the networking. We talked about sales a little bit. We talked about a lot of things. Is there anything that we didn't touch on that you wanted to touch on?
No, we covered an awful lot of stuff, Darren. We could literally go for hours, so it's probably best to not go into it.
For sure. Okay, so the question I have for you that I ask everybody before we close, if you could share one of the most important lessons you've ever learned, it could be from your personal life, if you're comfortable sharing it, or from your career, what do you think is one of the most valuable lessons, most important lessons you ever learned?
Kaizen. That's the biggest one. So if you don't, Kaizen is a Japanese word that roughly translated means constant and never-ending improvement.
Okay.
And it's what can I do today to make whatever better, and constantly learning and building up on the skills and like going to the gym and getting stronger and working on my habits and stuff, because the tortoise always wins the race. But a lot of people, okay, if I can't be fast like the bunny, I'm not going to do it. Where the tortoise, slow and steady, just slogging along, and they always win. So Kaizen would be the number one lesson.
I love that, because what I hear in that is, first of all, Tony Robbins talks a lot about that. I'm a huge Tony Robbins fan.
Huge.
And he talks about constant, never-ending improvement. And you talked about slow and steady wins the race.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I hear when I hear that is consistency. And I think that's incredibly important, but it's, I think the thing to think about, like, this is how I think about consistency, is that it's a direction and not an action. So, consistent one day might be one step forward. The next day might be 2 steps. The next day might be a half step. I just feel like as long as you're moving in that direction, we were talking about earlier about this analysis paralysis, and like setting these huge unrealistic goals. And I think that I think it's important to understand that if it's a business, whatever the goal is, whatever you're trying to pursue, there's going to be days where you perform better than others. But as long as you continue moving forward, that's the key thing, man. You're not going to, like you mentioned, home runs earlier, you're not going to hit home runs every single time you go to bat. But as long as you keep going to bat and you keep taking swings, that's what it's all about.
Have you ever read Great by Choice by Jim Collins?
I have not.
Oh, I love the Jim Collins book. So his first one was Built to Last, then Good to Great, and then Too Big to Fail. And then he did Great by Choice. Great by Choice is by far my favorite. But one of the things that he talks about at the beginning of the book was the race to cross the Antarctica. And there was 2 teams that started off. And the one team, they didn't even survive. Like, they all died. The team that survived, they're going, okay, what made them survive? So one of the things, they were over prepared, and like they had their depots and stuff set up. But he says one of the things is they called it the 20-mile march, and they were going to set out every single day. So if they had a really good day and conditions were perfect and they were making good time, they did their 20 miles, and then they set up camp so that they wouldn't push themselves too hard and get themselves tired and worn out. And even if it was storming, they would go out. They might only make it 15 miles, but they did it. And they made it to the pole, and they beat the other team by something like 63 days, like a lot.
Wow.
And then they were able to make it back, where the other team, if things were good, they would just go and go and go and go, and they'd get themselves tired. And then they hit a storm, they'd be hunkered down for a week. And all of these things. So he said one of the number one things, there was a whole bunch of things, but the 20-mile march, every single day, I'm going to be doing something. I'm going to be moving, like you said, in that direction, putting in the effort. And sometimes my results will be better, but I am putting in the effort regardless.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's incredible, man. Because it's like that what happens, what you do when that storm comes. You mentioned the group with the storm. What you do in that storm era is what defines the whole journey. Because I mean, it's easy when the sun's shining, and it's warm outside and it's sunny. But what are you going to do on the days that it's hard to make that march? That's really
why I tell people I love recessions. I love recessions because it sorts out the weenies. Because when business is booming, any idiot, and a lot of idiots do, put their shingle out and they'll get business in because everything's booming.
Yep. The
ones that make it through the recessions are the ones that had to learn all the skills, and they will be fine. They will be fine. So I love recessions because it's great for sorting out the people that are willing to do the work, the ones that are just lucky.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I've never thought of that before, but that does make sense. I don't know. I feel like there's a natural process of weeding out those people, because I feel like every once in a while, you get, because I mean, everybody thinks they want to start a business, and I think most people probably start it for the wrong reason. But and then we also have sort of it's like an inaccurate description of what entrepreneurship is. I feel like because I talk about this a lot, I say this a lot, but you get on Instagram and you see the Lamborghini and the nice house and everything, and it's like, first of all, if that is even that person's vehicle and house. That's a very small portion of that person's life. And then also you don't see the 20 years that happened before that, you know?
Well, yeah, and most of them, like I've seen enough stuff, there's actual businesses that are set up in Las Vegas and Los Angeles where you rent the car, and you rent the house, like it's an Airbnb, and you rent it for a few hours, and you can rent the clothes and all this stuff, and it's all bullshit.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh man, don't even get me started on the social media thing, because it's you know, it's a highlight reel. You know, we a lot of us put the best parts on there and all that kind of stuff, and I don't know, man. It's but the problem,
I'm also putting the best stuff out there, but I'm going, number one, is it at least real? Yeah, I don't like the filters, and like you said, did you rented the car and you rented the house so that you could make this and say that you're all successful? No, you're not.
Yep. Yep.
No, you're not.
But the problem is, though, like, you know, people put whatever they want to put. That's whatever. That's fine. But the problem is that, you know, we see these things and we compare ourselves to that. And it's like, dude, what you're comparing yourself to is not even a real thing. You know, that's my issue with it. Because like another person starts a business and they think that this is the way it's supposed to be. And it's like very little, if any of that, very little.
Exactly. There was a Dove commercial like probably 10, 15 years ago now that I absolutely loved. And it started off with this attractive woman, but she's a normal attractive woman, and they set her down and then they do all the makeup and the hair and all this stuff, and they're doing all the posing, and then they're showing, okay, now it's going to go into Photoshop and we're going to make her legs like a third longer, and we're going to fit all of this stuff, and then they're showing how she shows up as the centerfold in Vogue or whatever it is, and it's all like, yes, she's a beautiful woman, and what they're doing is bullshit.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
How come I don't look like that? Because she doesn't look like that.
Exactly. She doesn't even look like that. Yeah, that's a good point. Well, I mean, you see the same thing in the bodybuilding. You know, they had those guys, like, they look tan, but it's actually whatever all that stuff they spray on them or whatever it is. I don't know, man. It's and then the lighting has to be exactly right, and it's just like.
And then what are they doing for the photoshopping? And okay, they haven't had anything to drink in 3 days, so they can get the pop. But they do that. They do that for the business and all that as well. Like it's literally all over the place.
Yeah. Yeah,
so,
I don't know.
Grain of salt. Of salt.
That's it. That's it. Listen, this has been a great conversation, and I know we could go for hours more, but I don't know. I forget what time's on your end, but here it's about 4:30, and I have another call in a couple minutes. So,
well, we're coming up to 2:00 because I'm on the West Coast.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize. For some reason, I thought you were Central. I don't know why, but
no, I'm California, just north.
Okay. I hope you weren't affected by the fires.
No, I'm in Canada, so.
Oh, okay. I thought you said California.
Well, California time zone.
Oh, I see. Okay.
California time zone, just further north.
Oh yeah, I got you. Yeah, I don't know much about that side of Canada. I've met people from Toronto, which I think is that somewhere central? Like
no. Toronto's just north of New York.
Okay, so what's the one if you go like in Michigan, if you keep going north?
Winterpeg.
Somewhere in that, yeah, somewhere up there. I'm not sure.
So well, Michigan. Okay, so Michigan, you've got Windsor is actually just south of Detroit. You just cross the bridge. Winnipeg is like Detroit? Perfect central, okay. And then Vancouver is the far west coast for Canada.
Okay. Yeah, unfortunately, I don't know. I've never been to Canada, so I'm not sure. I've actually never been outside of the U.S. That's on the bucket list.
Okay, get yourself a passport and come visit. We're off.
Yeah, I do have to do that, man. I've been to several places in the U.S., but I have a list of places I want to go to outside the U.S. So,
well, one of the things with Canada and U.S., we are so geographically huge. It is so easy to travel within our country for an entire lifetime and see an awful lot without ever leaving the country because we're huge.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's definitely.
We talk to Europeans and they'll cross 3 countries in an afternoon, and I'm going. It takes, if we were to drive from Vancouver, which is our west coast, to St. John, Newfoundland, it's a 6-day drive.
Oh yeah. That's what
minimum 6-day drive.
I think the U.S. is like 3,000 miles approximately across, something like that from New York.
And we're bigger than you are.
Yeah. So yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. I think when I was a kid, we drove from South Carolina to Colorado. And that was, I can't remember how long that was, but that was like, I think we stopped once, maybe twice for a hotel. Other than that, my parents just took shifts basically.
Yep.
But that was a drive, man. It was like, no disrespect to anybody who lives there, but I remember, I don't know if you've ever been to Kansas in the US. It's like it's like this table, man. It's like very, very flat. At least the interstate part was that we were on. It was like very flat. Like there was just like fields everywhere. And I was like, man, this is like, I slept through most of that. We went through.
I've driven to Vegas quite a few times, but my husband and I, we drove to Los Angeles once to visit friends. And I was thinking, you guys have like 360 million people. Where the hell are they? All I'm seeing is highway and some cows for most of it.
Yeah. Well, I think California has a pretty big population. I think there's like 40. I want to say 40. I can't remember how many people live in California. There's a bunch.
Yeah, the population of California is the same as Canada, so 40 million people. But so much on like the I-15, like we saw people like Salt Lake City, and you drive through Vegas, and there's people there. But other than that, until you hit like greater Los Angeles, there's next to nothing.
Yeah. What's crazy? The high school that I went to, I think the entire school, and this includes the administration, the teachers and everything, I think there was like 600 people total. I think my graduating class had like 100 people in it. Because I'm from a very small town.
Which would be a metropolis compared to the school. I grew up in very rural Alberta. My class was the largest to ever go through for graduation. We had 56